Good morning, this is Brian and welcome back to the ranch. So we just got through about a week-long stretch of really cold weather. We've got about 6 to 8 inches of snow. Wasn't quite as bad as the disaster of 2021 here in Texas. We didn't lose electricity or anything like that, but for the past 2 years I've been trying to figure out the best way to set up my watering system, so those days where the roads are impassable and I can't come out here to break the water on the ice for the animals when the temperature gets close to zero and sub-freezing weather. And this year I think I finally cracked the code on how to do that. So I'm going to show you my setup and what I did, so that if you're in an area where you can't get to your property to take care of your cows or your livestock when the weather gets bad enough that you can't travel on the roads or anything like that, then your animals are good as far as water goes. All right, so I'm gonna start my setup over here by the faucet. So basically I just have the faucet or the hose connected to the faucet, and then I just take some towels and wrap it around there, just to give it a little bit of insulation to help it from freezing. That in and of itself isn't going to keep it from freezing. So basically I just connect the hose down over here I connect my hose to a Y connection right there. That white thing that's on the Y connection, that's called a freeze miser. And what that'll do is when it gets 37 degrees or colder, it'll open up and it'll allow the water to flow. And the way that it works is the colder the weather gets, the more the valve opens. So if it's just like this morning when I got here, it was right about 37 degrees. It was just barely trickling. I've been out here when the roads cleared up. I came out here, it was about 16 degrees. It was flowing pretty heavily, and I specifically set up my watering system so that the tanks are well above in elevation to where the freeze miser is. And then this is an area where water would naturally drain anyway, and then the water just drains out here. And I built a little kind of culvert right here to keep my fence from washing out, so the water just kind of drains naturally into an area right here. If you set it up so that this is even with your water trough or near your water trough, the water around your trough is going to freeze, and you're going to make an ice rink that makes it dangerous for the cows to get close to the trough. So that's the first step, is that you connect it to the water miser. Now the second thing that I did is this right here is a heating element, and this right here will turn on. It's basically a heating cord, and that cord is about the same length as this dishwasher or washing machine connection right here, and I have that leading up to the water trough. And then I took some insulation that you use for HVAC. I think this is maybe 3/4. I can't remember the size of it, but it's the smaller of the two. And I put that in there and then just used duct tape to seal that up. And so this turns on when the temperature gets below 50 degrees, and it'll warm up that hose so that you don't have freezing from here to the connection. One of the problems that I had in using that freeze miser in the past is that it would work pretty well, but then the connection from the hose to the house wouldn't freeze because of the water flow, but it would freeze from the connection up to the tank. Because I only have 5 cows, if I had like 30 head of cattle, they would probably drink it fast enough that the water would mostly be constantly flowing. But since they only come like once or twice a day to get water, it would give time for the water to freeze in that hose. And then the other thing that would happen is that a layer of ice would form on the water trough. So to keep the water from freezing in the trough, I basically have 2 heating elements that are 2 heating elements that are plugged into here, and each one of these heating elements are in the water trough, and this is what they look like. I set my bulb there to allow only about 75 to 80 gallons of water. This is a 110-gallon tank. I found that if I allow the tank to completely fill up, then the heating elements aren't sufficient to keep everything from freezing. Initially, I just had 1 heating element in there, and it wasn't sufficient to keep it from freezing, so I had to put 2 in there. So 2 was plenty to keep the water from freezing, and then the heating element that's connected to the freeze miser right there never froze up, and the freeze miser kept the hose from freezing up. So it worked out really good. I'll put some footage of my I have a trail camera that was fixed on here so that every day I could just check and make sure that the cows had fresh water while I was away, and the setup worked out really good. I guess I should talk a little bit about the downside of doing it this way. The downside is it probably used a ton of electricity. I mean, I don't know the wattage of those heating elements. I'll put it up on the screen what the wattage is on that. I'm sure my electric bill is probably going to be a little higher than it normally is, but I would rather pay a little bit extra in electricity than have to drive up here every day and freshen the water for the cows, especially when the roads get icy and treacherous. Around where we live here in Texas, there's not infrastructure to properly clear the roads because we only get 1 or 2 snow events a year, so cities and counties don't really have a lot of snow plows and things like that to really clear the roads. So once you're snowed in, you're pretty much snowed in until things melt. And so we were probably snowed in for about three or 4 days last week or the week before last. So but anyway, so that's kind of my final rendition of a couple of years of troubleshooting how to keep water from freezing. Here, our temperatures got it as low as 8 degrees, so we were well below freezing, and this setup worked really good. So the coldest that we've ever seen it here in my property is about 6 degrees below 0. I kind of wish it would have gotten down to that level just because I wanted to see if it would still work at those temperatures, but I would imagine you know, that's only a 16-degree swing. I imagine it would probably work no matter how cold it got. And the other thing that I forgot to mention was that I went ahead and grabbed a bucket and put a big rock in there and made sure that the extension cord stayed well above the ground. I was afraid that the snow load on here, when it would start melting, might short out everything. So I did that so that it would stay up off the ground. And then I put my freeze miser up on a little rock. Probably should have grabbed one a little bit bigger. The snow actually completely covered that up, but because the water was flowing and it comes out of my well at probably about 58, 60 degrees, all the snow was pretty much melted in this area right here. So nothing really froze up, but I wanted to make sure that the extension cord was well above the ground so that we didn't have a problem with that shorting out. So my 2 breeding cows here, Dolly and Loretta, over there. So they're both bred. I did use semen that was selected for heifers. So we should have, here in July, we should have 2 heifers if they go to full term. And I'm a little concerned. They're still, I haven't taken the effort to take the calves off of them right now. Here, little Harry, who's aptly named, he's really hairy. And then Dirk's here. They're 9 or 10 months old, and they're still feeding. And this is our This is our steer, Hank. He's gonna go to slaughter probably April, May timeframe. But yeah, this winter they're both looking a little on the thin side. But I think that is because I have made no efforts to wean the calves off of them, so they're pregnant and using calories to sustain life in their bellies, and then they're also feeding these two monkeys over here. So I think next week I might separate them. I might put them in the steer pen that I had Hank here last spring, and see if we can wean them off and see if we can get a little bit more weight on both Dolly and Loretta. So that's kind of what the status of the cows are. I did unroll a bale of hay in this paddock, so hopefully they'll eat most of this, and then I'm going to leave them in here so they can eat some of this stockpile that I put in here. There's enough stockpile Bermuda that they should be able to take this down, so I'll probably leave them in here at least 2 to 3 weeks. And then I moved the water trough over here. We're not supposed to be below freezing for the next 10 days, so even though I left the heater on that heating element on the washing machine hose that leads over to the trough, I'm not going to plug anything in because I'll be back next weekend. So I went to go turn on the outside spigot. So there's a spigot on the other side of this wall here that goes to the outside, and all of a sudden a bunch of water started squirting out. So unfortunately this, they've got insulation right here, but that little bit right there, it's not insulated that leads outside, even though I had it covered with a covering. When we had our freeze last week, it looks like we got a leak there. So I'll probably just call a plumber to have them out. But this is the first year I didn't put a space heater in this corner to kind of keep everything nice, and you can see the space heater sitting right up there. I just never bothered to plug it in, and which was a huge mistake. So now it's going to cost me a visit from the plumber because I'm not about to try to fix that. I know my limits around here. So anyways, that's the only damage that we pretty much got from this winter storm. So that's pretty much all I have for you guys today. Hope you have a good one, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks.